Leave your politics at home.
California's chasing people. They're punishing people and producers with lack of the quality of life, onerous taxes and regulation. Arizona is going to remain closed.
As more young professionals relocate from states like California and the state's Asian Latino population grows too, it's no surprise that demographics and politics are changing. The state also had a large voter turnout from members of its 22 Native American tribes.
As more and more people move here, we're watching the state of California, there is a very big undercurrent of people that are upset about it and they need it. Because not only are they making this place unaffordable for the people that are considered native or have lived here for a long time, but they're also changing the politics.
Regardless of politics, Arizona is certainly changing as new people and new EV and chip companies solidify its reputation as a hub of investment.
It really has become a center of excellence here that's just going to get bigger and more important. So there's enough momentum now, I think that's inevitable.
Arguably the epicenter of the world. One famous song goes, "You can make it there, you can make it anywhere." And it's true. Those that make it make it through. It's the richest city in the world with a total wealth of $2.7 trillion, 113 billionaires, and 25,000 people with ultra-high net worth.
But the coronavirus pandemic has lost. At one point, the fatality rate was about 30% In April, nearly 1 out of every 3 New Yorkers was out of work, and local spending was down by over 40%. Tourism industry, which supported almost 400,000 jobs and generated $70 billion in 2019, savings and numbers skyrocketed.
When we talk about economic recovery, rich people don't need a recovery. They're actually richer right now. The best case to make for New York, invest in Nevada.
The consequences are a potential budget shortfall of at least $30 billion in the next few years. While the area will be getting nearly $24 billion in federal aid soon, state and local officials say that that's not enough. Raising taxes on the wealthy is one part of Governor Cuomo's proposal.
If you raise income taxes, operate
It would make New York the area with the highest state and local income tax in the nation.
Most successful New Yorkers are doing great, and asking them to pay more is very appropriate. But I think there is a balance that one has to maintain.
If you leave that iceberg to melt faster and faster, and the next thing you know, a big chunk of the tax base is falling off its level.
in general migration declines. You know, for rich religious want to find a way to have generations to go through. You're going to have to cut, no matter.
Another part of the proposal is to cut Medicaid and school spending.
Cutting public services is a very dangerous thing to do, both economically, politically, and also morally. Those actually do drive people to leave the city.
Between January and December of 2020, about 93,000 more people left the city than normal. That's not that much considering New York City's total population is 8.3 million. But those that left brought $34 billion in personal income with them.
Is this the class of New York City or New York City? No, it's not. So much bigger than it's not. But is it a serious challenge of also making people travel right now? Yes, it is.
Watching the city go through this crisis has been really difficult. I was born here and I spent half of my career here. We spoke to experts to find out what some of the challenges are and what they have to do.
Economists often refer to post-recession recovery as a letter, L, U, V, or a W. A V is the ideal, meaning the economy fell sharply, but then will also rise sharply. The coronavirus pandemic has introduced something we haven't seen before, decay. economy recovers like the bee. In this case, those who work from home were able to save and benefit from a sharp rise in asset values. Some corporations did very well too. For others, the pandemic has been quite the opposite. In 2020, $662,000 were lost, and bankruptcies surged by 40%. Leading industries like hospitality, entertainment, food service, or travel were completely shut down. Unemployment in the city is at 13.1% and even higher for those below the poverty line.
What New York City and New York State needs to do is actually spend money now. And they could spend money building affordable housing, rebuilding the roads, rebuilding the bridges, and all those things are going to put people back to work. Cutting corners, guarantee that.
First, I'm championing $1 billion in tax relief for the screening for. Then I proposed trying to get high-speed internet to the 29% of New York City residents who don't have it. And I proposed a People's Bank to help reduce the proportion of New Yorkers that are unbanked and underbanked.
On the fiscal side, the city initially projected a budget shortfall of $8.33 billion for fiscal year 2021. But a major review in February 2021 showed that a better than projected revenue from income and from corporate taxes is looking to generate a surplus of nearly $3.4 billion.
In the medium term, the outlook is not as good. The city is projecting a $15.6 billion deficit for fiscal year 2022 through 24, mainly due to a decline in property tax collections. For the state, Governor Cuomo is estimating a $15 billion deficit for just fiscal year 2022.
Policymakers should not overreact to the revenue shortfall they have right now. It's not very significant for all of the concerns about revenue decline in New York. Tax collections were down about 1% last year. That's well within the state's ability to recover. Now, the state's expenses keep going up, so flatline revenue is still a challenge for the state because those expenses keep rising. But nonetheless, this is manageable.
Regardless, city and state officials are feeling the pressure. There are a number of proposals to
City and state policies to tax the wealthy that are gaining the most from the economy and reinvest it into the rest of the economy so that they can see some gains as well.
We don't really have data. We do have a lot of anecdotal evidence right now that the wealthy are leaving high-tech cities and states during COVID.
If they leave, there's a huge risk of crisis. How do you pay for all these services? And that affects everyone. People who stay either have a higher tax burden or will receive fewer government services. So there's a real question that policymakers need to address right now. How do you keep these people here? How do you make sure that post-pandemic they want to come back?
We're moving to a virtual world in which people have choices. The city has got to figure out that these folks are not the enemy.
In 2018, the top 1% made up 42.5% of total income tax collected by the city, according to the Independent Budget Office. That was $5 billion in revenue for the city. In January, Cuomo proposed a top tax rate increase of up to 2 percentage points.
New York is probably the best place in the entire planet, potentially, to get really, really high. And taxes is not even a priority. Studies have shown that we could probably increase our taxes 60 to 70%. And at the end of the day, the millionaire life that would happen would be overshadowed by all of the right? The state would still show, the city would still show a net positive in revenue.
In addition to New York State's top tax rate of 8.82%, the city levies its own income tax, which can be as much as 3.876%. According to the Tax Foundation's calculations, New York is the third most expensive state to live and do business in. CNBC does a similar ranking, but it looks at the state's attractiveness for business. On that list, the state ranks 27th.
New York City is a very high municipal income tax. And if people are not physically working there, New York City doesn't get that revenue. So as those Midtown Manhattan offices empty out, so even the city's pockets, we can ask the fundamental questions about what sort of society we want, what sort of tax rate we want, but also have to grapple with economic realities, which is there is a and which people will
Income tax is one part of the story. New York City depends even more heavily on property
of making tough decisions about its own budget, will simply seek to raise rates to target higher taxes on the remaining value, on the remaining landlords, on the remaining businesses, hiring individuals that make up the loss and create kind of a vicious cycle in which they push away people and businesses and lose more.
The fear of high-income earners in big cities or states with high taxes is common among lawmakers and experts alike.
Very intuitive. What we know about millionaires and billionaires, they're well known to avoid taxes and how sort of this income dependent accountants, lawyers, and wealth managers who are helping them with their decisions. And so this fits in with the idea of taxes.
Notice that while there are anecdotes, the data doesn't support it. He's been analyzing tax returns of the wealthy for over a decade.
2.4% of millionaires a year changed their state.
21-year-old college student, he had his music. Small car having practices and business to my knowledge. The hacker or scammer, whatever you want to call it, sent him a link and you wind up clicking the link. And after you click the link, he was pretty much looked down and you know, sustain the kid was actually seeing how that should be saying and begging for officials to take the cash.
The reason you don't see like Trumpy approaching taxes is that the value proposition
That anyone could ever teach you.
hasn't been completely destroyed. A lot of really high income, high earning people in fact
This is crazy. This is
different lifestyle.
You can protect yourself
They
at
could
the
be
time
assured
that you're not going to get hacked. It
This
does
is
not
not
mean
the
you're not
first
going to
time
get
that New York City
compromised. The only thing that you can do is take precaution.
In fact, the city has a long
Make a
history
video
of
how to protect
From
yourself.
the 1960s flu pandemic and the
have to look at this
to 9/11 and the early 70s, each time critics have proclaimed the end of the city as the time things had gone.
You have to look at this
He was the mayor of the city during the Great Depression and World War II. He worked at a time when the federal government was willing and ready to invest lots of money in its cities. But in the decades after World War II, over time, the idea of the federal government supporting New York City was no longer in fashion.
In the 1960s, the working poor thrived in New York City. There was a free public hospital system, free university tuition at the City University of New York schools, a large public housing system, cheap and reasonable subway service, and generous salaries for public service workers. The services, they weren't cheap, and by 1975, the city was plagued by a fiscal crisis.
It was a time of rising conservatism, and the city became a symbol of what was wrong with state government.
By giving a federal guarantee, we would be reducing rather than increasing the budget.
President Ford denied federal aid, and banks forced city officials into an austerity program that cut social services. Now, the city avoided a bankruptcy, but historian Bill Stein argues that the austerity measures transformed politics, its character, and its demographics forever.
In certain ways, the government of the city became much more geared toward the idea that you have to track city policy with an eye towards retaining and attracting wealthy residents, businesses, and doing whatever you can to make sure that they stay here.
I would say in the 90s, if you were going to be a top flight employee of a first tier firm, that's what it is. It's what I would call a network effect. And I would say today, that proposition has changed dramatically.
From 1977 to 1997, the top tax rate on earned income remained high. The state's estimates of product exploded, and the wealthy got substantially wealthier while the poor became poorer.
That as a development that played out over the 80s, 90s, and the past 20 years, 2000, many of the crises that we've seen in the city, they've affected people very differently depending on where they are in the economic structure.
In the years following the Great Recession, New York City experienced its strongest expansion in decades. At this time, though the economy is in shambles, the state and city's fiscal situation are looking better than previous downturns, and not as bad as initially predicted. And the fact that Americans in general have more savings than ever before bodes well for recovery.
And all of these people felt some assurance
Jobs are actually, I think, much more important in driving people out of New York, more important than tax increases.
Manageable by historical standards, what sets this pandemic apart is the unprecedented uncertainty. Short term, that means a significant vaccine available and the arrival of federal aid. Long term, it will depend on whether the city is able to retain cooperation economics. That could be at risk if work from home policies are sustained.
You know, we've heard this story for thousands of years. The cities always endure people and the cities came back. New York has proven resilient, it will continue to, but that doesn't mean that that will finish.
We're going to need all hands on deck. The gravity of this crisis is very, very real, and there is no guarantee that New York City just comes back to where we want it to. Introducing stocks by the slice for free. Now you can trade stocks and ETFs for any amount you choose, instead of calculation. All calculations. Stocks by the slice for free. Get your slice today.
Shit sucks, man.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us. This is an Unpack like no other. After 2 years of unprecedented challenges, our world has changed. As ever, our ways of living, working, connecting with one another, our personal values, even our responsibilities to each other and to society. In our new world, technology has helped in ways we never expected, enriching human connection, creating positive change, and helping all of us build a better world today and for the future. We believe that technological progress and social progress are intertwined. Over the years, Samsung has put billions of devices in the hands of users all around the world. And we know our global scale and our spirit of openness give us a unique responsibility to use our reach to make the biggest impact possible and to help the next generation of leaders and problem solvers make the world a better place. Last year, we launched Galaxy for the Planet, our new sustainability vision. As part of Galaxy for the Planet, Samsung is taking strong actions across our business. We are building energy-saving technologies into chargers, diverting waste from landfills, and minimizing the plastics in our packaging. We are making product life cycles longer to reduce and reuse materials. And soon, you will hear more about how we are innovating with recycled debris. Every single product we announce today uses reclaimed bound plastics, helping to protect our precious oceans while bringing you the cutting-edge technology you expect from Samsung. This is all part of our journey to help create a better future. And the best part is we are not on this journey alone. We are following the roadmap to the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals, the global goals And to be clear, these are not just the UN's goals. They are yours. They are ours. They belong to the
Not artificially inflated. So you can actually come out here and actually and make a decent living without having to spend $4,000 a month living in a studio apartment rats.
And although California is top of mind when it comes to big tech, Texas has a rich history of tech business too. Texas Instruments pioneered the development of silicon transistors out of Dallas in the 50s. In the 80s, 3 engineers from Texas Instruments broke off to form Compaq, developing the first portable laptop-sized computers out of Houston. Dell was founded by a freshman at University of Texas at Austin in 1984. IBM has had a major presence in Austin since the 60s, while Microsoft is a major employer in the Dallas area.
You think about California as the 49ers, right? The 1849ers. Who came to California to strike it rich and build the gold rush and birth of the Levi Jeans and tech. So the northern part of California so moved from gold to silicon. Whereas Texas is a different story. Texas is Tejas, right? It's the Caddo word. It means traveler or friend. And in Texas, we celebrate the Six Flags of Texas. And so the idea of Texas, I think, is very different. It's about coming together. It's about bringing different things to the conversation, throwing your stuff into the mix and seeing what emerges from it.
With a big new presence from Apple, Tesla, and Oracle, some are asking if Austin will be the next Silicon Valley.
We want to take, copy some of the great things in Silicon Valley. We love great people living here in Silicon Valley, but we don't want to be Silicon Valley.
People love being in Austin. That has forced and propelled tech companies, large ones, to establish offices here.
Austin is also home to South by Southwest, which Goswami has been involved with since its early days as a tech festival. He graduated from Stanford and moved to Austin in 1995 to work for tech company Trilogy, which also relocated from Silicon Valley.
We want people to become part of Austin.
American utopia is back on Broadway. And it's as joyous, hopeful, mind-blowing, and awe-inspiring as it ever was. Don't miss this once-in-a-lifetime event. Get tickets at AmericanUtopiaBroadway.com.
If you're like me, you probably create a little. If you're not like me, you kept a comprehensive and detailed spreadsheet of every single transaction you've ever made, so you know exactly how much tax you would pay. Luckily for both of us, it makes tracking and reporting all your taxes, including NFTs, incredibly simple.
All you gotta do is log on your website, and you'll be asked to connect one of your many exchanges. Now, for most people, that's just command, and all you gotta do is click each exchange in order, and click connect. Once it's connected, click review transactions, and there you'll be able to simply remove the one you choose, and have the last clean list of transactions that you can tell. Very easy. You can comfortably do that. From there, you can go to get report, give that to your tax agent, straight from the IRS, and you're ready to go. It's that easy.
Hello folks, my name is Neha and today we will discuss thematic network and using MetaTattva. Now let's first discuss today what is Metatattva.
Hello there, and welcome to Samsung A37X. We have not had the pleasure of meeting
Why
before.
was MetaTattva created? Due to the growing demand of Ethereum network, there is a high transaction of network that will make almost
I can use your
centralized applications
throughout my space. Now, go explore the world and help me turn red hearts green.
as a layer 2 series. It was later rebranded to Polygon in Feb 2021. Decentralized. Let us talk about MetaMask now. Now, MetaMask is a browser extension which works as a cryptocurrency wallet that connects with Ethereum blockchain. Now, it allows you to interact with decentralized applications built on Ethereum ecosystem without you having to download and start blockchain. Now, I'm not going to explain how to download MetaMask in this video, but I have explained it in my another video, and I will leave the link in the description. With that video description, some timestamps find the part where I explain MetaMask. MetaMask is just a browser extension, and you can also install it on your own in just few clicks. Now, let's go to the MetaMask wallet, and let me click on expand it. Now, important thing to note here is you will need some Ethereum magic tokens and some other tokens if you want to trade those tokens, but these two are required for and you will need magic tokens.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us. This is an unpack like no other. After 2 years of unprecedented challenges, our world has changed, as have our ways of living, working, connecting with one another, our personal values, even our responsibilities to each other and to society. In our new world, technology has helped in ways we never expected, enriching human connection, creating positive change, and helping all of us build a better world today and for the future. We believe that technological progress and social progress are intertwined. Over the years, Samsung has put billions of devices in the hands of users all around the world. And we know our global scale and our spirit of openness give us a unique responsibility to use our reach to make the biggest impact possible and to help the next generation of leaders and problem solvers make the world a better place. Last year, we launched Galaxy for the Planet, our new sustainability vision. As part of Galaxy for the Planet, Samsung is taking strong actions across our business. We are building energy-saving technologies into chargers, diverting waste from landfills, and minimizing the plastics in our packaging. We are making product life cycles longer to reduce and reuse materials. And soon, you will hear more about how we are innovating with recycled debris. Every single product we announced today uses reclaimed ocean-bound plastics, helping to protect our precious oceans while bringing you the cutting-edge technology you expect from Samsung. This is all part of our journey to help create a better future. And the best part is we are not on this journey alone. We are following the roadmap to the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals, the global goals. And to be clear, these are not just the UN's goals. They are yours. They are ours. They belong to the whole world. And the whole world is counting on each of us to help meet them. That's why Samsung's partnership with the United Nations Development Program is so vital. For more about this inspiring partnership, I am pleased to introduce Achim Steiner, Administrator of UNDP. Over to you, Achim.
Thank you, TM, and on behalf of the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, I'm honored to join you and millions of others today. We're all at a critical moment in our pursuit to achieve the global goals. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought unprecedented challenges to our society and the planet. And for the first time in 30 years, we've witnessed a reversal in global human development. That's why it is more important than ever to come together to take collective action towards a greener, more resilient future for all. If there is one thing the COVID-19 pandemic has taught us, it is how connected to the planet and to each other we all are. It is clear that technology is a driving force behind forging those connections, not only in our daily lives, but also in helping to shape our collective future. Technology can help us build back better from crisis, and even enable us as a society to be better equipped to propel progress. It is with those innovative principles in mind that we have founded a strong partnership upon which we can build even further. With Samsung, we created the Samsung Global Goals app, now installed on nearly 200 million mobile devices worldwide. Together, we've inspired people throughout the world to learn about the global goals and take action to achieve them. The scale and impact that has been made possible through partnerships like our collaboration with Samsung is informing the next generation of UNDP's own Digital Strategy 2.0. And through Generation 17, we are working to highlight the critical importance of youth in achieving the global goals. Young people are often directly exposed to the effects of climate change, conflict, exclusion, and economic instability. In many parts of the world, it is still difficult for young people to be heard and to influence decision-making processes. Yet, youth represent our best hope for positive change at the front lines, in our communities, and on the global stage. That is why we must find ways to empower young leaders and practitioners who are mobilizing their generation, the largest in history and now some 1.8 billion strong, to tip the balance in the right direction.
Bodybuilder, his packaging designs were a little weak. In a Bigfoot museum, yes, we have a Bigfoot museum. His social posts weren't even much of a Join me on a trip to help Boring become unboring.
Since the first transaction that we need to confirm, similarly we also need to confirm 2 more transactions on the checkpoint. So I'm not going to do that currently, but that is how you can proceed and transfer that all your tokens from again back from Polygon network to Ethereum network. So that is it for this video, folks. If you liked it, please just like this video, please hit on the subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.
There are a bunch of tutorials on YouTube about how to create NFT collections, but none of them show you the entire process. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create an NFT collection and how to mint them for free, even if you have zero coding knowledge. In this video, we're going to dive headfirst into cryptocurrencies, NFTs, minting, and coding. I don't expect you to have any prior knowledge of any of this. If you already know Web 2, then this should be a breeze, but if not, no worries. We're going to go step by step through the entire process. I'm going to explain what blockchains and NFTs are and give you some context and background first. If you're already familiar with that and you just want to skip ahead to the good stuff, I have chapter markers set up for you, so just skip ahead to whatever section you want. The repo for the finished code will be in the description, so if you get stuck at any point, just reference that. And thanks to the sponsor of this video, NFT Port, for making all of this possible. So what is an NFT? Well, it's simple. Non-fungible token. That makes sense, right? Okay, I know this entire cryptoverse is confusing. Non-fungible basically means that an item is unique and cannot be modified or replaced. For instance, if you have a dollar bill, you can exchange that dollar bill for another one and you still have $1. Both bills are equal and can be exchanged. But if you have an original Picasso painting, you can't exchange that for anything else. There's nothing else in the world that can equal that original painting. You could buy it for money, but it's not the same thing. That's what an NFT is. It's a token that is original, unique. It can't be altered or ever replaced easily. Now, most NFTs are on the Ethereum blockchain, but what even is a blockchain? Well, a blockchain is a database, but instead of all of the data being stored by one centralized computer or server, the data is distributed or decentralized into blocks of data onto many computers. Now these blocks are chained together, hence blockchain.
Oh man, it's like a trick for real, man. Like, what the fuck is who's doing that shit, man?
The citizens instead of corporations and data. Data is being used generally used for transactions.
Why didn't it work?
Anyone can see anything.
No, it worked. I don't find the box.
But it's
What the fuck?
super secure. There is no one computer or corporation that can manipulate or modify the
Don't
data.
make sense.
Each computer or node must be verified by others. This makes blockchain the most secure way to make transactions today. Now, most people think of artwork when you mention NFTs, but an NFT can be just about anything. An NFT is basically a proof of ownership. You own it, and it can't be taken from you. They can be used for unique items in games, videos, music, event tickets, real estate deeds, or any type of contract. There are so many use cases, the sky's the limit. Tweets have even been sold as NFTs. You can create a single NFT, and that's fine for some use cases. But you're going to find a lot of examples of collections of NFTs. These are like trading cards. Each is unique with its own attributes, some common and some super rare. And there are many communities that are built around these collections. Two great examples are CryptoPunks and the Bored Ape Yacht Club. These have become super popular. The cheapest CryptoPunk available to purchase at this time is over $400,000. And the floor price for a Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT is $150,000. What we're going to do now is create an NFT collection. We're going to create 10,000 unique images. And you might think this is going to take forever. It's not. We're going to do this by using layers. We start with our base image, and then we add more layers to alter the resulting image. This is how most NFT collections are created. There are many applications that you can use to accomplish this, such as Photoshop, GIMP, Procreate on the iPad, but I use Figma. I like Figma because it's vector-based. When you resize a vector-based image, it doesn't pixelate. But this is just my preference. You can use whatever you're familiar with and you have access to. This is not going to be a Figma tutorial, but I have set up several layers and drawn different features for each layer. You should start with the furthest layer, which is the background. I have several solid colors and some other custom backgrounds as options. Now the idea here is to have several options, and then later we're going to use a program to randomly choose an option from each layer, which will generate for us all of our unique images. Now next I have my base layer, which is the cat outline. This layer will be the same for every image. Then I have two color layers. One is the fur color, and the other is an accent color. These have several options to change the color of the cat. Then I have hats, eyes, eyewear, mouth, whiskers, and most important, text stickers for the laptop. Now all of these layers have options, which we're going to use to make unique images. Some options will be more common and others super rare. After I created all of the layers, I exported each layer as a PNG image. Now PNG is important because it's going to retain the transparency in the layer. This is going to allow us to overlay the images onto each other. Now here's the fun part, creating the unique images. Manually creating 10,000 images from all of these layers would take forever. So we're going to use a great open source application. It's called Hashlips Art Engine. Thank you to Daniel at Hashlips for this great project. This is where we're going to do a little bit of coding, but I'm going to walk you through it. First, we'll go to GitHub where the project is stored. And there's a link to this repo in the description below. Now, at the time of this recording, the current version is 1.1.1. To be sure everything works the same for you, go ahead and download that same version. Just click on Releases and under version 1.1.1, download the zip file under Assets. Now, after you've downloaded the file, unzip it. If you've never coded before, you're going to need two other applications. Node.js, so go to nodejs.org to download and install the version appropriate for your operating system. And the other thing you'll need is VS Code or any other code editor. I prefer VS Code. For that, go to code.visualstudio.com to download and install the version appropriate for your operating system. Alright, so let's open the folder that we just unzipped in VS Code. Now, your VS Code might look a little different than mine. I just have the theme installed, but it works the same. So let's go to the file, open the folder, and then let's navigate to that folder that we unzipped. So Hashlips Art Engine 1.1.1. When you get to this folder, select folder. Now this project is already set up with image layers to give us an example. So if you look under here, there are a bunch of layers, background, bottom lid, eye color, eyeball, and so on. So to show you quickly how this works, we need to install the dependencies for this application. So we're going to open up our terminals. So at the top here is terminal, new terminal. And in here, we're going to type npm I, and that is going to install all of our dependencies. Now we can run the program by typing npm run generate. This is going to generate 5 unique images based on the layers that we have here. Now, if you have any issues here, be sure that you installed Node.js properly on your system. And these images are created in a folder called build. You can see our images here, and we can preview them. Let me close the terminal, and we can preview these images. Each one is unique. And then notice along with the images, we also have JSON files. And these are the data files that define what options are contained in the related image. And these will be used during the NFT minting process to define each attribute on each image. We can see in here we have a name, description, a link to the image, DNA, edition, date, attributes, trait type, value, and the compiler. The platform that we're going to use to upload and mint these NFTs uses what's called an ERC 721 contract. This is an industry standard way of formatting the metadata. There's a link in the description for more information on the ERC 721 specs. But because of this, we're going to slightly modify the way that our metadata is created. So let's go over here and we're going to open up in the source directory the main.js file. Now this might look intimidating, but don't worry, I'll walk you through this. So we're going to scroll down here, and it's somewhere around 133. So we have this image here in our metadata. We're going to change image to file URL, just like that. Then we're going to move DNA edition date compiler into their own object. We're going to call that custom fields. So curly braces, and then on the inside of that, let's cut this out and paste it here. And also on the compiler, we'll paste that there. Then we need a comma after this object, and we need this line here. And then we'll need to scroll down to line 306. Here it's referencing the meta. We'll just need to add the custom field here. So meta.customfields.addition. So that is all we're going to do in this file. Let's save this and we can close it. Next, we're going to change out these example layers with our own layers. So to do this easily, we're going to go inside of our File Explorer. So I'm going to right-click, Reveal in File Explorer. And now we can see all of these existing layers. We're just going to delete everything there. And then I'm going to paste in all of my layers that I exported from Figma. You can see I have a bunch of layers here. Accent color in the background, ear, eyes, eyewear, fur, head, laptop, and a bunch of logos, mouth, neck, nose, ton of layers. We can close this and go back in VS Code, and we should see our new folders and files here. Now each one of these is a folder, and then within the folder we have our options. So next let's go to source and then config.js. In here we're going to update the name prefix and description with our own. So let's go down here, name prefix. So your collection, you'll want to change this to whatever you're going to name your collection. Mine is Code for Cats. And then a description. So add description here. On the base URI, we're going to update later because we don't know it quite yet. We're not going to worry about this Solana metadata because we're not using Solana. Now scroll down here under layer configurations. First, how many images or additions do we want to create? So we're going to change the row size from 5 to 10,000. Initially, we're going to want to just test this to make sure it's working. Once we get 5 good images out of it, then we'll change it to 1,000, 10,000, however many we want to create. I'm going to go ahead and change mine to 10,000. Now under layer order, we're going to change these out for our layer folders that we just copied over. And be sure to order these correctly. The first layer needs to be the furthest background layer, and the last layer needs to be the closest foreground layer. Also, the names of the folders are important. These are going to be used in the metadata as the attributes. So let's open up my folder structure here. So under layers, we're going to add all of these into layers. So background, that is the background, that's what I needed. I'm going to speed this up for time because there's a bunch of layers for me to type in here. Alright, so I finished adding all of my layers. There's a ton of them. And then I want to show you one other thing. So under my layers, and then in certain ones of these, like eyewear, I've got sunglasses, cool glasses, hard glasses, but then I have a blank. This blank is just a blank transparent image. This was the easiest way for me to have some images not have eyewear, they'll just be blank. So I added that into all of my logos as well, so not every logo is going to show up, just certain ones. And then like on the hats, we have a blank in there as well, so the cat won't always have a hat. And so I hope that makes sense. Now we'll scroll down in the config.js file, past all of that. I'm going to change my format to 1500 by 1500 of it. You can add whatever you want here. This is just my preference. Then scroll down a little bit further. Under extra metadata, we're going to enter a field here. And again, this is just personal preference. I'm going to add an external URL. And that is going to be the website of my collection. And this is going to show up on OpenSea for each NFT. And we're also going to define a rarity for each layer option. To do this, we'll edit each layer option file name. You might have noticed my file names might look a little strange. If we go under background, you'll see that I have at the end of the file hash 100, hash 100, hash 1, hash 100. Now this is a weight that we can give each option. If we want something to be very rare, then we could say hash 1, and then for something very common, hash 100, and these are just arbitrary numbers. It could be 1,000, it could be anything that you want. It's just a weighted number. If we made all of them 1, then they would all be equally used. In this instance, purple is going to be very rare. So I went through and added that to certain options. So under pupils, we have a normal pupil, there's 100, and then frost and paranoid and rolling eyes. These are more rare. You'll want to play around with these numbers to get a good mix. So I did the same thing under logos. I have a blank, which is going to show up 10 times more than the logo itself. If you just want everything to be equal, you don't have to add a hash at all. You can just leave it, and they'll all be equally weighted. Now, there are a ton of other advanced configurations that you can do with this engine, like create GIFs, use blending modes, pixelate images, and much more. If you have more advanced needs, go check out the Hashlips YouTube channel, where he goes into much more detail. There's a link in the description as well. Now, this is all that I need to change. Alright, so now let's run this and get 2,000 unique images. So let's open up our terminal. Now we can go to terminal, new terminal, WordPress, control backtick. That's the key next to the 1. Let's type in command, run, generate. Now, depending on your system, this could take a while to generate. For me, it took just a little bit over an hour. And again, these images get saved in a folder called build. And this folder structure that you see here is the same folder structure that's in your computer's file explorer. So I'll give you a sneak peek at a few of these. Right, and then if we go over into one of our JSON files, you're going to notice here that in our attributes, close the sidebar. In our attributes, we have background, ear color, throat color. We want all of these. If you scroll down a bit, you're going to see blank. So if the neck doesn't have a necklace or whatever it might be, then it's going to say blank. And then it gets even more apparent when you go down to the logos. There are a ton of blank logos. So we don't want to upload these blank attributes to OpenSea. So we'll need to go ahead and modify that as well. Okay, so let's just go over to your source, main.js, and then line 170, let's close this sidebar here. All right, 174, we're going to add a new line here. We're going to say if selected element name, we're going to trim it. So just in case it has any white space before or after it, I'm going to trim that off. So we'll say trim. Then we're also going to say we're going to want this to go to lowercase. Lowercase. So this is going to give us the name without any white space before or after it, and lowercase makes it easier for us to match. We're going to say if it does not equal this. So to do does not equal is exclamation equal equal. So if it does not equal blank, and we're going to put blank in lowercase so that it matches. So if any of our selected items does not equal blank, then we're going to run this code after it. After this, we need a curly brace, and then below this part here, another closing curly brace. And so, if it does not equal blank, then we're going to push the attribute. If it does equal blank, then it will not get added to the JSON metadata. So now we have our images, and we're ready to create our NFTs. This is where most tutorials stop, and most people get confused and give up. You see, usually you're going to need to know programming technologies like Solidity, Web3.js, IPFS, and others to create an NFT collection. You have to first deploy a contract, upload your files and metadata, and then mint your NFT. And this process could take weeks to learn, but there's an easier way. We're going to use a great platform called NFTport, which is the sponsor of this video. With NFTport, we can do this entire process in minutes rather than days. On top of that, it's completely free. Just go to nftport.xyz. They have a generous free plan that includes up to 1,000 NFTs, 5 contracts, access to NFT data, and enhanced APIs. You can also apply to the community program to get bumped up to 50,000 NFTs, 15 contracts, 2 times higher rate limits for NFT data, 50 megabytes IPFS file upload limits, and more. To get started, all you have to do is get your free API key. It'll be emailed to you right away. And the documentation for NFT port is great. We can easily mint a single NFT with just a single terminal command. But because we want to create our own collection, we'll need to first create a contract. And to do anything on the blockchain, we're going to need a wallet. And I recommend the MetaMask wallet. If you don't already have it, just install it as a browser extension and sign up. Go to metamask.io to download it. Again, everything in this video is completely free. This is just going to allow us to assign ownership of our collection and NFTs to our personal wallet address. This is just how things are tracked on the blockchain. Alright, so now back on NFT port, let's go to the documentation. Now we scroll down under minting contracts and storage. You'll see contracts here and deploy an NFT contract. A contract is required in order to mint NFTs. NFT port uses the ERC 721 standard that we talked about earlier for its smart contracts. A smart contract is like a manager for your NFTs. The contract keeps track of them all. It can verify ownership, handle transfers, allow you to update existing NFTs, and much more. So the first step to creating an NFT collection, or even just a single NFT, is to create a contract. And we can actually create our contract right here from the documentation. You'll just need to add your API key here under authorization, and then update the name of your collection. I'm going to call mine Code Cats, and then you'll want to enter your owner address, which you can get from MetaMask. So just go up to your extensions and open up MetaMask, and then right here you have your account number. Just click that to copy it and paste it here. For the symbol, we'll leave that at C. And for the chain, I'm going to recommend initially to use the Rinkeby chain, which is a test chain. It allows you to play around and test before deploying it to the actual Polygon chain. I'm going to change this from Polygon to Rinkeby. And in the documentation, again, it's very good. We scroll down here, you'll see all of the options. So for chain, allow values are Polygon or Rinkeby, the name, the symbol, owner address, and then we have this meta updatable. I'm going to actually add this to my contract, and I'm going to set this to true. But some advanced planning is needed. My plan is to mint all of the NFTs, but reveal them only after purchase. So initially, all of the NFTs will have a generic image indicating that they will be revealed. After purchase, I'm going to update the NFT's metadata to point to the actual image and its attributes. If metadata updatable was not set to true, I wouldn't be able to do this. The metadata pointing to the image will already be frozen and not editable. That's why I'm adding this option. We'll add that in the code here. We need to surround this with quotation marks. Metadata updatable, true. Now we can send our request. We get a response, 200 OK. That means that it worked. So this is on the Rinkeby chain. We have our transaction hash, transaction external URL, owner address, the name, the symbol, all of that got returned to us. So you could go to this URL and check the status of it, but we're going to need this information, especially this transaction hash, in a little bit. So let's go ahead and click this little button here to copy all of this code and just save it somewhere on your computer. So next we're going to upload 10,000 files to IPFS. IPFS is an industry standard for decentralized storage. You could just use Google Drive or any other online file storage, and that would work. But that is centralized storage and defeats the purpose of decentralization. Fortunately, NFT port has all this worked out for us. It's really easy to upload these files. So back in the documentation, let's go to storage and then upload file to IPFS. Now here we could pick a file and send the request and upload each file one by one, but that would take forever. So let me show you an easier way. The code that we used to generate our images is called JavaScript, and it uses Node.js to run. Now as you can see here in this code snippet, there are many different language options that NFT port has provided. So we're going to select Node and then Fetch. This is going to give us some starter code to work with. Let's copy this code. Alright, back in VS Code, we're going to create a folder structure for some new files. Let's go to our File Explorer, Then under utils, we're going to create a new folder. We're going to call it NFT port. And then inside this, we're going to create a file. Let's call it upload files.js. Let's paste that code that we copied into here. Now we're going to need to install a couple of packages to help us out. So let's open up our terminal. Remember, control backtick. Let's type npm I, which is going to install node fetch, node-fetch, and then form-data. Should just take a few seconds, and we have those installed. See, we are using form data and we're using node fetch, so we need those to be installed for this application to work. Next, we're going to copy a few lines from the main.js file. So let's open that up. Go to source and then main.js. We'll need this base path and fs. Just copy that. Now let's paste it here, and we can just get rid of this network line. Delete that one. Base path, fs. The first thing that we'll need to do is get our images and loop through them one at a time. We're going to create a file stream and add each file into our form data. This is where we're going to get our form data. So let's move that up here. So form data equals new form data. And then we need to read that file. So we'll say const file stream is going to equal fs.createReadStream. And it's going to be the same base path, and then build images, and then our file. And then after that, we can append to our form data. So we're going to append file, and then this is going to take our file stream. So what this is doing is it's looping through our images, taking each file, and then it's reading each file, and then adding it to our form data, which we're going to submit to IPFS. So now we can use the rest of this down here. We have our URL, our options, and our fetch. So let's just move that right up here. We close the sidebar so we have form. So we have our URL, which is our API link for NFT port. In our options, we're going to be posting, and for the headers, we really don't need the content types here. So let's delete that. We just need our authorization. I don't think that I said this before, but your API key is super secret. Don't let anyone else use your API. That's why mine is blurred out here. Instead of appending our form data here, we're going to move that here into our options. So we can just say body and then form data. Just like that. And then we can get rid of this line here. That just makes it look a little cleaner. Now in our fetch, we're going to receive our response here in the second .then. So this JSON is going to be the response to our request. Right now we're just console logging the JSON. In this response, we're going to receive back the link to our uploaded file on IPFS. So we need to update the image's corresponding metadata file with this newly created IPFS link, right? And so if we go over here, so remember each build, each image has a corresponding JSON file, and it contains a file URL, which right now is just a generic URL that doesn't actually exist. So we need to update this after we upload our file with the new link. So if we go back into the documentation, we can scroll down and see what we should expect to receive back. So here's our response. So in our response, we're going to get an IPFS URL, file name, content type, file size, and if we have an error. So IPFS URL is the item that we want to add into our metadata.
Born in Roma, the fragrances by Valentino.
So how are we going to know which JSON file to update? The JSON files are remembered the same as the images. So we're going to get back the file name in our response. We can use that and add .json. That way we'll know which one corresponds to which image. So here, instead of console logging JSON, let's add curly braces, and then we can add some recruiting. First, we're going to say post file name is going to equal path.parse. Then we can pass in here JSON.file name. Then we need name. Now we need to bring in path as well. So let's go back up here, and let's also say const path. equals required. Path is a core Node.js package that we need to install. So back down here, we're getting our file name, then we're going to get our role as simple as role to have us read files. We're going to use our base path again. $sign versus base path. Let's see. Build. This time we're going to look in the JSON folder. We're going to look for file name. And then add on to that JSON. So it's returning to us the file name without the .png. And then we're reading that file within the raw data. So now we need to parse it. So we say let metadata equal JSON.parse. We're going to parse that raw data. Now we have a JSON object here in our metadata. So now within this metadata, we can say metadata.file URL. So currently the wrong URL is just a fake URL. We need to update it with the right one. So we're going to say that equals JSON.IPFS URL. Alright, so we're updating the metadata basically in memory right now. And now we need to write it back to the file. So we're going to say fs.write file. And then in here, again, start with our base path. And then build JSON. And again, our file name. JSON. So that is the directory we're going to write to. And now we need to tell it what to write. So we're going to say JSON.creatify. But we need to turn this object now into a string text that we can write to a file. We're going to stringify our metadata. And then we're going to pass this an option. So we're going to say null to. This is going to write this string of data instead of one long string. It's going to write it in a readable way. Alright, and then after that, let's console log. I'm going to say JSON.file name uploaded and file name .json updated. And then after that we have catch. If we have any errors, it's just going to console error. So this should work. This should loop through all of our files, upload them, and then update corresponding metadata. So let's save that. Now to run it, terminal, and let's type node. We're going to use node to run this. Node, and then it's in the utils directory. So utils/nft/upload. Files.js. That's the file we have open right now. We're going to use node to run this file, and it's going to loop through, upload all of them, and update the metadata. Well, I only have 5 in my working directory right now, just so that I can demonstrate this. Alright, they've all been uploaded. Let's go over and check out JSON should be updated as well. Alright, so now we have in this code cast number 1, there is a URL here. So let's open this up. And there it is. It is on IPFS. Alright, so now we have our images uploaded to IPFS, and we've updated the associated JSON meta files. So now we need to also upload these JSON files to IPFS. We're going to start with the same code that we have here in our upload files. Let's just copy that. And let's create a new file here under NFT port, and we're going to call it upload.js. Alright, let's paste in that code to give us something to start with. So we're going to loop through, just like we did our images, but this time we're going to loop through our JSON files. And then in our URL here for our API, we're going to change from files to metadata. And we're going to be adding these files to form data, so we don't need any of that. So let's delete the form data, require, and this form data, and this as well. And when we upload these files, we're also going to receive some data back. that will have the metadata URI that we need in order to print our NFTs. We're going to need to save all of this data to a file which we can reference later. So we're going to start out by writing a file called _IPFS_metas.json. We're going to make it empty, and if the file doesn't exist, then it's going to be created. If it does exist, it's going to be cleared. It's going to be in our base path build JSON IPFS metas.json. And then initially the value is going to be blank. And then we're going to create our write string. So create write string. This is going to allow us to open a file and write to it over several operations and then close it, instead of opening it, writing, closing it over and over 10,000 times. We're going to add the flag a write string, which allows us to append. We need to add this to a variable, so we'll say const writer equals. Alright, so now we can call writer every time we add something into the file. So initially, we're going to say writer.write. So we're writing several objects into our file. We're going to make this array by starting it with a square bracket. We're going to create a variable called redirectory. That's going to equal our base path build JSON. And then we can keep track of our total file. So we'll say let file count equal as we see. Pass in our read directory and then get the. From this, we're going to subtract 2. There are 2 files that we want to skip: the metadata.json and the IPFS metas.json. Next, we're going to look at our for each here, where we're looping through each file. We also don't need this file stream. First, we're going to say if file equals underscore metadata.json, and then the 2 pipe characters means or. So or if file equals, this is triple equals, equal, 3 times. So the triple equals underscore IPFS metas.json. Then we're just going to return. So when looping through these files, if we come across one of these 2 files that we want to skip, we're just going to return, which will just move us on to the next file. The code after the return will not be executed. So let's read the file next. We'll say const JSON file. That's going to equal fs read file. And then we'll pass in our read directory. And then so now we have our file. We can pass it into our functions. So in the headers, I'm also going to add content type application JSON so that the server knows that we're passing it a JSON file. And then instead of form data, we're going to use a JSON file. In the body, we're passing the JSON file. This time when we receive our response, we're going to write the data to our write stream and then deduct 1 from our file counter. So let's delete all of this from the previous version. We're going to say writer.write JSON stringify the JSON that we receive back and print it so that we can read it. And then we're going to deduct 1 from our file count. So file count, and we just do a minus minus, that will get 1 from the file count. So now we're going to check to see if we're at the end of our files. So we say if file count triple equals 0, means we're done looping through. We'll say writer write. We need to add closing square bracket. else writer dot write. And we're just going to write a comma, then a new line here. It's backslash new. It's like a carriage return and adds a new line to the document. Alright, so then let's console log. We're going to say console log JSON name, and then metadata, upload it, and add it to IPFS JSON. Save that. Now remember that I said that I'm going to reveal my NFTs after purchase. This means that initially they're all going to have a generic image and no attributes. So that way you have no idea what you're going to get until you purchase them. You could get a common NFT or maybe a super rare one. It's like buying trading cards. So I'm going to create a second set of JSON files from my NFTs. In these, I'll redact the DNA and attributes from the JSON files and then update the file URL to a generic image that all the NFTs will have initially. Now you don't have to do this. You can skip this step and just upload these as is if you want to. If you don't want to go through this reveal process, you can skip to the next timestamp. Alright, so I'm going to create another file. Here in NFT import, a new file. And I'm going to call it generic metas.js. We're going to use a lot of the same code as we did before. So over here, let's just copy this and paste it in here. This time let's get our build directory as well. So say const build directory is going to equal path join our base path, and then we're going to add on to that /build. First, we're going to create a new folder called generic JSON if it doesn't already exist. Then we get rid of the write file sync that we don't need anymore. Then we're going to loop over the JSON files, skipping the 2 extra files like we did before. Then we'll read the current JSON file. We'll change the name, description, update the file URL, and delete the attributes and DNA items. Then we can delete the entire fetch request that we don't need. Lastly, we're going to write the new file into the new directory. Then we'll console log the file was copied and updated. For the file URL, I'm just using a generic image that I uploaded to IPFS. You can use the NFT port docs to upload a single image easily under storage, upload file to IPFS, which we looked at earlier. To run this, we can open up our terminal, and if you hit the up arrow, it's going to bring you your last command. We're going to do something very similar. This time it's going to be /NFT port / metas.js. To run that, and it has copied 5 of them. So if we go up here to build generic JSON, we should now see the generic JSON. And now we only have the name, which is now unknown, description unknown, this generic image, and then our custom fields no longer has DNA. We still have our external URL, we still want that. In the addition, everything else is fine. So now back in the upload metas, now I'm ready to upload my metas because I wanted generic ones. You may have wanted to upload the real metas, and that's fine. So now we're going to run this. If we go up here to our read directory, this was important from before. Everything below line 11 is referencing our read directory. Actually, I just noticed one thing that's not. We need this to say read directory. So since everything is referencing this one variable, we can easily change this to whichever directory we want. Okay, so JSON is our real metadata JSON files, but I want to change this to generic JSON and upload these files. Because we're reading from generic JSON, this time we only have these 2 files to account for. So we don't want to subtract 2 from them, otherwise it will be short 2 responses. If you're using regular JSON, you should subtract 2. to run this, we'll open up our terminal and the up arrow to get our last command, and we'll change this to /blue metas.js. So now we ran that. They've been uploaded and also written to our _IPFS metas JSON. So we go over here. We go into our JSON directory. We should now see IPFS metas.json. And we can see what was returned from uploading this. We have our metadata URI for each one of our NFTs. This is what we're going to need whenever we mint them, which we're about to do. Right now that we have our files uploaded, we can actually mint our NFTs. There are two items that we need, the contract address and metadata URI. We can get our contract address using the transaction hash that we got from deploying our contract. Remember I told you to copy that and save it earlier? If you forgot, that's not a problem. We can use another great feature of NFT port. Here under user, we can go to list all your deployed contracts. And then just put your API key in here, send a request. And there's a few tests that I have in here. At the bottom, we should see caps. And the address here, that is the contract address. Alternatively, we could have gone under contracts, retrieve the deployed contract, and then under transaction hash, paste that hash that you got back, and then change this to either Polygon or Rinkeby, whichever chain you deployed it to. Send the request, and again, we're going to get our contract address here. Well, let's copy that. Remember, things on the blockchain aren't permanent. There are lots of ways to track things down. Let's go back into VS Code, and we're going to create another file. So let's go to our files here under NFT port, and we'll create one called mint.js. Let's copy from the upload metas. A lot of it will be the same. We'll close that and paste that here. We have our contract address. The other thing we needed was our metadata URI. And all of those are in our IPFS metas JSON file that we saved after we uploaded our metadata. Right, so we're going to first get that file. So say constant IPFS metas is going to equal JSON parse. It's going to be as read file sync. This is not totally necessary because they're just going to show up in your wallet, but I like to keep track of these. So this time we'll create a file in the build directory called Metatattva.json. And this time, instead of looking through files, we're going to be reading one file, _IPFS metas.json file, and then loop through its content. But we'll keep track of the count again too. We'll update the URL and create a mint info object. This will contain the chain, contract address, metadata URI, token ID, and address that we're going to be minting each NFT to, which should be your address from Metatattva. For the token ID, we'll just use the edition number. And for the metadata URI, we're going to get that from our meta object in the IPFS metas JSON file that we include. Each time, we're going to get a new URI to mint. When we get our response, we'll write the response to our write stream, deduct from our counter, and then close out our file like we did in the update metas file. And lastly, we'll console log the transaction external URL of the minted NFT. Let's save it. Open up the terminal, and we can run it. Press the up arrow to get your recent command, and then we can just backspace that, and then run mint.js. There we go. We have the file minted here. To check the progress of each one, we push scan, and it should take a few seconds. And click on one of these and open them up. And see it's still running. Alright, so it's succeeded. We can also check on OpenSea for the item. It's probably going to take a few more minutes. show up on OpenSea. And since I use Linkedy, I'm going to go to testnets.opensea.io. If you deploy them to the Polygon chain, then you should just go to the normal OpenSea.io. The first time that you go to OpenSea, you'll be prompted to sign in using MetaMask. For that, just go to your profile and you should see them show up. Now, if some of them don't have images or metadata, just give it a few minutes. And if they still don't show up, then you may have missed a step. You can use the lookup features on NFT Port to verify the items that you've minted, and we try to track down the issue using the data files that we save. Also, whenever you upload one, you see that mine still haven't showed up yet. I'll go in here, there's a refresh meta button. So, after some time, if it still doesn't show up, click the refresh, give it a few more minutes, and then check back. In the near future, I'm going to update the site for this collection to add purchase functionality. You'll be able to purchase an NFT, and the site will update the NFT's metadata to the actual data. So go check out the site. Sign up for updates. It could already be functional by the time you watch this video. I'll have another entire video on how to integrate all of that into your site. But for now, I'll show you how to use the NFT port docs to update an NFT. For now, if you just wanted to mint 10,000 NFTs and you're not going to do a reveal, then you're done. Just skip to the next timestamp. We'll need three things: the contract address, token ID, and a new metadata URI. Now note that the contract must have been created with the metadata underscore updatable field set to true for the associated NFTs to be editable. And we only have two options that we can update. We can update the metadata URI, which will update the NFT's image URL, attributes, etc. And we can update the freeze status. If we pass freeze underscore metadata equals true, this will freeze the NFT and will no longer be updatable. And that is what we would want in our situation after the purchase of the NFT. So first we need to upload the actual metadata for the NFT to IPFS. Remember, before we uploaded generic data with generic images. Let's use the NFT port docs. And we can just go over here to upload metadata to IPFS. You could use the code that we wrote earlier to upload a bunch of them, but I'm just going to show you one example of updating one NFT. So back in VS Code, I'm going to look at one of the actual JSON files here. And I'm going to copy the contents here. We have name, description, file URL, custom field, and copy all of the contents of this. And then back in here, I'm going to delete what was here before and paste over it. It doesn't matter that it looks like garbage there, but as long as we have our API key and we have all of this here, we should be able to send the request. And we get a 200K, that's good. And now what we need is the metadata URI. Let's copy this. Alright, so now let's go over here under minting, update, and minted NFT. So in here, let's change Polygon to Linkedy. If you uploaded yours to Polygon, that's fine. Leave it at Polygon. The metadata URI in the clipboard, so let me just go ahead and paste that first. Token ID that we're going to update is 1. You can get your token ID back under OpenSea. You go down and you find is this one. And I know it's number 1 because that's number 1. And then with details, we have a token ID of 1. I know this is the one that I want to update. So back here, we have a token ID, a metadata URI, we need the contract address. Now I had that here in the mint, should be in here. Here is the contract address. Copy that and paste that here. So the contract token, it's going to update the NFT with a token of 1 to this new metadata URI. So let's send that. And we got the 200. Good. And one thing that I forgot to add onto here was freeze metadata. And set that to true. There's the quotation marks there. So if I would have added this, it would have froze the NFT so that I can't update it again. So right now in our response we have freeze metadata is false. So let me go ahead and just send this one more time. and now it is frozen. I can't change it ever again. Again, we can go back to OpenSea and refresh, and we'll need to wait, refresh, update the metadata, wait some more, refresh again. Eventually, the changes will appear. Now, this has nothing to do with NFT port. It's just the way that blockchain works. It takes time for everything to update. Okay, so I actually had to wait about 4 hours for these to finally update on OpenSea. And again, this has nothing to do with NFT port. This is just the way things work on the blockchain. It takes a while for things to propagate and update. All right, so this is what one of my NFTs looks like before it's revealed. It's just a cat carrier. You're not sure what's going to be in there. If we go down, we can see that there are no properties. There's just the normal details. And then if we scroll back up here, there is a link to go to the website. So this is what it looks like after we have the actual NFT. And we still have our link up here that goes to our website. And then in the sidebar here, we also have properties. And so here are all of our properties for this particular NFT.
KFC's Beyond Fried Chicken. Tastes like scrumptious chicken, but it's made of plants. It's a Kentucky Fried Miracle.
Okay, so we went through all of that in order to test out our NFT uploading and minting scripts. Now it's time to upload the actual 10,000 NFTs to the Polygon chain. This time I have all 10,000 images and JSON files in my build directory. I've created a new Polygon contract, the same as we did with the Rinkeby contract. And I've changed the chain in our code to Polygon instead of Rinkeby. This is a time lapse of the images being uploaded to IPFS, the metadata being uploaded to IPFS, and then the actual minting of the 10,000 NFTs. The entire process took about 12 hours total, and it just takes time to upload and mint that many NFTs. And here's the final collection on OpenSea. Again, these are generic images of cats in carriers. When they get purchased, I'll update the metadata to point to the real NFT, which will be random. Now I'll be creating a video on how to automate the metadata update on purchase. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. I'm going to be giving away a bunch of these NFTs. I'll be doing routine drops letting you purchase random NFTs as well. So join my Discord for more information. If you want to check out this NFT collection that I created, go to codecats.xyz. There's a link in the description as well. Now, NFT port is a great gateway or bridge from Web 2 to Web 3, and it's not only limited to minting NFTs. They have other features as well that can be used in all kinds of apps, such as searching for multi-chain data, recommendations AI, and a duplication detection AI to protect your assets. So don't be afraid of the complexities of Web 3. Dive right in and learn about the space and build NFTs and NFT apps with NFT port. And in general, just join the Web3 revolution. It's exciting, interesting, and brings so many opportunities. If this video was helpful, give it a like and subscribe for more content like this.
Hey everybody, this is Gregory from Daft University. So I'm so excited to be on Free Code Camp today to teach you how to become a blockchain developer. I'm going to take you over the shoulder and teach you how to write Ethereum smart contracts with a Solidity programming language for the blockchain. And you don't even have to know anything about Solidity or blockchain to follow along. So I've compiled this multi-part tutorial series into one massive video for Free Code Camp, and you can follow along with the code examples step by step on my website. There's an article that I'm going to put a link to down in the description below. And finally, if you're serious about becoming a blockchain developer, you need to join my free training on my website over at daftuniversity.com/bootcamp. And I'll also put a link to that in the description below. Solidity is the main programming language for writing smart contracts on the Ethereum blockchain. It's a contract-oriented language, which basically means that smart contracts are the main way that you organize code and store data and write all of your programming logic.
And it's a high-level language for implementing these smart contracts. It looks a lot like JavaScript and Python and C++, as you see right here. And it's used to run on the Ethereum virtual machine, which is basically the thing that runs the code on the Ethereum blockchain. So Solidity is statically typed as opposed to a dynamically typed language, and it supports stuff like inheritance, libraries, and lots of other stuff. So enough of talking about Solidity, let's actually jump in and start writing some Solidity code. This is a website that allows you to write Solidity smart contracts in your browser, and it has a text editor here and allows you to compile them and deploy them and run them. And that's exactly what I'm going to use for this tutorial. You won't have to download anything on your computer, you won't have to install anything, you can just visit this website to use Remix, and we'll write the smart contracts that way. So in order to do that, I'm going to go over here to this browser folder. You can see the file browser over here. This is some basic smart contracts that come preloaded inside of this IDE. I'm just going to create a new one here. I think I can just create a new file. This will be a Solidity file. We'll call it my contract, and we're going to write a smart contract inside of here. I'll do this by first declaring the version of Solidity that we want to use. We just do that like this. We say pragma Solidity, and we use a caret to specify a version greater than the one we want to use. And I'm going to say version 0.4.24. And I'm going to end each line like this with a semicolon. And next I'm actually going to declare the smart contract. So before I do that, I'll explain a little bit more about what a smart contract is. Smart contract is code that gets executed on the blockchain. In this case, this is going to be the Ethereum's blockchain, since we're using Solidity for this Ethereum smart contract. And this smart contract is kind of like a microservice out on the web. It's going to be accessible to everyone on the blockchain. They'll be able to see this smart contract. They'll be able to use it. They'll be able to read and write data with it, and actually execute any code that we write inside of here. So it's going to be public, and that's kind of why I call it like a microservice. It's more than just a class, like in an object-oriented system or something like that. It's actually something that's publicly accessible. So it's going to look something like a class, though, because that's how we're going to actually, keep all the code inside of here. So I'll show you how to do that. We'll start by saying contract. Say my contract, and I'll open this with some curly braces, and it'll notice that the editor closes this automatically for us, which is really nice. And what I'm going to do first is just show you how to read and write a value from a variable inside of here. Now, like I said earlier, Solidity is a statically typed language, so we're going to actually have to declare the type, the data type of the variable we want to store. So in this case, we're just going to store string, and we'll declare string. We'll say value. Now let me explain something about this value. This value is going to represent, a variable that belongs to this entire smart contract. So this isn't like a local variable. It's actually a variable that this entire contract will know about. And what that means with a smart contract is that data is actually going to get stored on the blockchain in storage. So if we set this value, we're actually going to be writing data to the blockchain. That's different from a local variable that I might just set inside of a function that would be local to that function scope and would disappear instantly when the function is called. Instead, this value is actually going to be stored on the blockchain. So let's create a way to just read this value. So I can do this by writing a function in Solidity like this. We start with the function keyword. And I say, I'm just going to call the function get. It's going to get this value. And we'll say, just open the braces for now. I'm going to write some more code here in a second. You can see some warnings coming up. But I'll fill this out more. We'll say, just return value. Okay? And that's a really basic way to do this. I'm going to add some more to this. I'm going to say this is also public, right? Which basically is setting the visibility of this function. That's what that's called in Solidity, is setting the visibility. So that knows that this function can be called by anyone who has access to the smart contract on the blockchain, not just inside this contract. So I'm also going to set a return value, say returns string, right? That makes our warning disappear down here. And that just tells our function that we're always going to return a string data type. And we know that's the same data type as value because we declared it here. Now I'm also going to look at this warning down here which says this function state mutability can be restricted. So basically what this is saying is in Solidity now, in this newest version, since we're not actually changing this value, we're not changing anything inside this function, we want to add an additional modifier here which just says view. Alright, and that makes that warning go away. So now I'm going to set a new function, or write a new function that's called set. It's a function. It's going to allow us to set this value. So set as a string, we'll say value. All right, and I'm also going to set the visibility of this function. I'm going to call it public, which means that anyone will be able to set this value on the blockchain. And I'll say value equals this value that we're passing in. All right. Let me explain that. I'm using value as an underscore here because I want to differentiate between this value that's getting passed in and the value that's referenced here. Now inside of here, this value without an underscore is referencing this state variable that we set up earlier that's actually getting stored in the blockchain. And this value, Solidity knows that it's just a local variable because I passed it in and I prepended it with an underscore like this. And also notice that I declared the data type of the function argument. We need that inside Solidity because it needs to know the type of the data that's getting passed in. All right, and now we have a way to actually read this value and set it. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to set this value whenever you deploy the smart contract or whenever it's generated for the first time. And I'm going to do this with a constructor function. So if you're familiar with other programming languages where you might write, classes or something like that, you might be familiar with a constructor function, which is basically a function that's called whenever this contract is instantiated, or in this case, it's going to be whenever the contract is created, or whenever the smart contract is deployed to the blockchain. And in the newer versions of Solidity, we do that like this. We say constructor, and we just say it's public, and we can write code inside of this constructor that gets called whenever this contract is created. And we'll say value. We'll just set it as my value. All right, there we go. So that's a complete smart contract that set this value whenever it's deployed, so it will have some sort of default value, and then we'll have some functions that allow us to read that value from the blockchain, and then we'll have a function that allows us to create that value as well. So now I can go to this tab over here in Remix, and I can compile it. We can select the compiler version, and I'm going to say, let's see here, 0.4.25. We'll start to compile it and see what happens. All right. And now what I'm going to do is actually run the smart contract. You'll see some options over here. I'm just going to say JavaScript virtual machine, which basically what that's going to do is give us a test blockchain in the browser, so we don't have to connect to a blockchain of any kind. We can just compile this and run it and deploy it inside of our browser, which is pretty cool. And it's going to give us some free Ethereum accounts over here. Don't worry if you don't quite understand what all these values mean just yet. That's okay. I can explain those more. But for now, we're going to just keep my contract and we're going to deploy it. All right, there we go. It's deployed. So now what I can do is click on this little down arrow here, and we can see the functions that are available to us in the smart contract. We can see the set function and the get function. These are the functions that we created over here. The set function is going to allow us to update it, and the get functions allow us to get it. So I'll click get, and we should probably see the value that we created inside the constructor. We set it here. So let's get it. All right, there we go. It's my value. And we can see some activity in this log down here. We can see that there's a call to myContract.get. And now let's set it. So I'm going to enter the quotations for the string, and I'm going to say new value. All right, let's click set. All right, and we can see that worked. So you can see the transaction history over here. Let's get the value. All right, speed value. There we go. That's a complete smart contract that allows you to get and set a value on the blockchain. Now let me explain what's going on here. This is a list of transactions that are occurring on the Ethereum blockchain. So the Ethereum blockchain is made up of bundles of records that are chained together into blocks that make up the blockchain. And the basic unit of all those blocks are these transactions. So we can see transaction receipts. We can actually click the down arrows here. We can see all the details of those transaction receipts. And I've got other videos on this channel that kind of talk about that in detail. If you want to know more about that, just feel free to look for those. All right, that's it, guys. That's how you can write your first smart contract in the Solidity programming language. Again, that's supposed to be just a high-level overview of Solidity and how to get started writing your first smart contracts and using the programming language itself and using the Remix IDE in your browser to get started easily without having to download any tools or anything like that. The first thing I want to do in this video is actually update the smart contract code that we wrote in the last video to support the newest version of the Solidity programming language, which is 0.5.1, I believe. Now you can actually see the compiler version over here has changed. And in the last video, we wrote this smart contract, and there's actually some compilation errors you can see over here on the right. So you have to update this code to support the newest version of the Solidity programming language. And I wanted to go ahead and do this. I wanted to go ahead and support the new version of Solidity so that when I make more videos in this series, they'll be up to date and you'll have the newest version. So let's see what we need to do. We can read the error. It says basically the data location must be memory, and that's actually the error in both cases. So all we need to do in this case is actually just return memory here. And then whenever we're passing in the value a string, we actually need to put memory here as well. Alright? Actually, that needs to be before value default. And now the errors go away. So we will select the newest compiler version. We'll say, let's do the latest complete version, 0.5.1. Start to compile. And hopefully the compilation will work. Yep, it worked. So let's go to run, and we'll deploy. And let's see if it worked. Let's look at the value. Yep, it worked. Awesome. Now let's move on to the next part of this tutorial, where we'll actually cover the content of this video, which is going to be the basic data types and data structures in Solidity, and how you can use them when you develop your own smart contracts. So I will change some values in here to kind of show you what that is. The first thing I want to talk about are, the different ways we can work with state variables, right? So the first thing I want to mention is, we had this string value here that we had declared.
or it's more likely to happen just from the natural evolution of cryptocurrencies and mass adoption and more investors pouring in. Most likely, I think that's definitely a possibility. Yeah.
So if I understand it, which I don't, but you will help me.
gonna go to Solana, Avalanche, where they're using Polygon.
And that's why I asked, if you have all these competitors, including Solana that you love so much, then how will Ethereum go so high?
At this point, for example, if you look at, it depends on how you measure the health or the popularity of the blockchain. With DeFi, that's basically smart contracts. If you look at the amount of money that's locked into the smart contracts on Ethereum, it's 10 times the amount of whoever is closest to them. So they are still by far the largest, most funded, most developers, most platforms being built. It's all still happening on Ethereum, and it's been happening for years before these new projects even came into play. So they have a network effect that's very powerful to compete with. So unless something seriously wrong happens with Ethereum, which it could, because there's no guarantees in crypto, it doesn't really matter for us as the end user, because we are the ones that get to choose which platform to use and we move our money. So, you know, it's not like unless you went all in on Ethereum and you're refusing to sell it for no whatever reason.
That's me.
You can
Waiting for the price to go up.
Yeah, but another thing that, a huge thing that Ethereum has going for it, if you're looking at institutional investors, big money coming in, you look at liquidity, and Ethereum has a massive amount of liquidity compared to any of its competitors. So basically, say you have $10 billion you want to pour into a coin, and you would like to buy Avalanche, but that one sale would send that price skyrocketing to the point where you couldn't buy again, because it would just, you would be messing with it too much that you wouldn't be able to control. So basically, you want your investment to be a drop in the bucket compared to everyone else who's also buying and selling it.
And you also spoke about Cardano, which I was a huge enthusiastic. I'm gonna say, B, this one is for you. It's B, my friend, who loves Cardano, and I keep telling him I'm so frustrated with Cardano. Oh, how long am I hearing, oh, Cardano is going to $10 forever? Hold your Cardano.
Yeah.
What to say?
This is the same experience that many holders of Cardano have gone through for, again, basically since its launch in 2016. And in fact, one of the early videos, like one of the first videos I think I ever did talk about Cardano was the trade-offs of how they developed their blockchain versus everyone else, and how basically they have a really strict peer review process. So any code that gets launched officially on their blockchain, it has to go through all these check marks and checks and balances and corrections and things. So like theoretically, whatever does get published in Cardano is supposed to be rock solid code, like no hacks that you see happening on Ethereum, but it is very slow moving. So that's why a lot of people call Cardano vaporware. They call Charles Hoskin some scammer guy who's just really good at hyping up what's gonna come next in the news. But the fact remains is that their GitHub commits are through the roof. There's a lot of activity happening. It's not like he's just talking and no one's actually working on things.
That's true, but you know, in the internet, we are expecting things to move super fast, and this is slow.
Exactly. And that's the negative of it, is that it could, by the time it finally rolls out DeFi, it could be 2 years from now.
There you go.
And we're already onto something else.
There you go.
So that's certainly a concern that anyone who's investing in Cardano should be aware of. And that's why Toby and I were always saying, like, don't go all in onto any coin, because there's so many different ways to make money or to be profitable or to find success in crypto.
Would you like to know about the performance secrets of the world's top venture capitalists? I'm talking their journeys, routines, and advice to make you a leading investor and entrepreneur in 2022. My name is Landon Campbell from Inside.com, and we have a brand new series called Venturing in VC, where I get to sit down with the world's leading venture capitalists to answer all of your questions. What I'm most excited about this series is that it's absolutely
free. All you have to do is sign up for our email list, and you'll be able to attend our event and ask your questions directly to our amazing guests. In our first season, you'll get to hear from famous investors from firms like Craft Ventures, Sequoia, Mac Venture Capital, and so many more. You can sign up at inside.com/VIPC to get notified for all future events. Come venture with us at inside.com.
The following is a conversation with Vitalik Buterin, his second time on the podcast. Vitalik is the co-founder of Ethereum